we've got, this biosphere is this really thin little thing. There's not a lot to it. It's a very slim little envelope of life, and yet it's enormous. I mean, this is billions upon billions upon billions upon billions of living things, millions of kinds of living things. So it's got a lot of stuff in it. It's this huge, enormous collection of all kinds of things. It's really too big to manageably talk about. I mean, this is billions upon billions of individual organisms and millions and billions of types of organisms, species of organisms. So we tend to break the biosphere down. And the first level that we break it down to is we say that within this biosphere, there are lots of little ecosystems. So there are lots of ecosystems within the biosphere. And I'm going to put a bunch of them here. And, we could go on and on and on with those. I mean, there are tons of ecosystems. And an ecosystem, we'll go to the slide that talks about that. An ecosystem is all the living things and non-living things that we find in one place. So those living things are biotic factors, the non-living things are abiotic factors. But an ecosystem includes all of those things. So ecosystems, we can talk about them as, like we could talk about Lake Erie as an ecosystem. Lake Erie is an ecosystem. It's a big one. It's pretty darn big. We could talk about, if you've ever been down to the park, down at the bottom of the hill, there is a pond there, a fishing pond. That's an ecosystem too. Beaver Creek, the creek itself, is an ecosystem. The little mess of a pond we've got out here is an ecosystem. A meadow is an ecosystem. Your body is an ecosystem for what? All those bacteria. All your little microflora. Sorry, I'm just going to keep freaking you out, Olivia. So an ecosystem we can talk about a pretty large ecosystem, we can talk about smaller ecosystems. And very often when we're talking in biology, we focus on relatively smaller ecosystems, like a meadow, a forest, a specific area, because it's easier to think about smaller things than huge things. So an ecosystem includes living and non-living things, biotic and abiotic factors. So I'm going to do this. The biosphere is made up of lots of ecosystems. One individual ecosystem, is made up of a community of living things, and I'll shrink that, and all the abiotic factors that affect them. Whoops. So every ecosystem is this community, which is the living things, the community of living things, and all the abiotic factors that affect them. And we'll look at the definition from your notes for community. Whoops, we missed a slide. Sorry. There we go. So that ecosystem is comprised of communities of living things and all the non-living things that affect them. Well, what makes up a community? A bunch of populations. And we've had that word populations a couple times now. So within that community, there are going to be a bunch of populations of different kinds of things.
It smells like burnt popcorn.
It does, and I didn't do it. Usually when there's a popcorn smell, I'm to blame, but I did not burn my popcorn. think burnt popcorn is an offense against nature.
I usually burn it because I never know when to stop it.
Oh, we just put an air popper in the teacher's lounge. No more burnt popcorn for anybody. Okay, so one community is made up of lots of populations. What's a population?
A number.
No.
I mean,
You want to say number.
yeah. I don't know. Wait, and
All the members of a
area.
species
Species and then
that live in a specific area. Yeah. The number part is the part that you always want to say. So here, let's copy all this. We'll take this forward. So a population is all the members of the species that live in a particular area and can interbreed. That number thing is the size of the population. That's how many individuals are in the population. So if we put this back here, within that one population, what makes up a population? Individual organisms.
I was gonna say that.
I know you were. I just beat you to the punch. Copy, paste. You know, and a population for some species in some place could be 10 individuals. In another instance, it could be 1,000 individuals. You know, that's the size of the population. So the biosphere, my goodness, that's billions and billions and billions of trillions. Probably quadrillions. I mean, more things than we can count or wrap our head around, more individuals. So this is sort of the basic tiers of organization. We already worked a little bit with populations when we talked about how populations evolve, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the dynamics of populations. It's a really useful unit for biologists to use because it's not too big. You know, it's really hard to talk about all the bacteria on the planet or all the rabbits on the planet. That's too much. But a population is manageable, and yet it's a large enough group. It's not one individual who might not be a good representation of that species. A population you can see changes in. You can see how they interact with their environment, but it's manageable. So we mostly, honestly, will be working at the level of populations. So let's now step back a second. So if we were to look at how those things are organized, the big kahuna, all the living things on Earth, that's the biosphere. An ecosystem might be the pond at the park down the hill. That would be an ecosystem. The community within that ecosystem, so that would be the living things in the ecosystem, would include all the different populations of species that live at that pond. Mallards and snapping turtles and green frogs and bullfrogs and bluegills and bass, mosquitoes, dragonflies, northern water snakes, gill snails, broadleaf cattails, water lilies, algae, duckweed, probably a couple hundred species of bacteria. You might have paramecium in that pond or euglena. Sure, just little single-celled organisms, but they're not bacteria. But then if we wanted to talk about a population, that could be gilled snails at the pond in the park. So when we talk about a population, it's got to be one species, one location. One species, one location.
What slide is that?
It's in there. Okay, so you wanted to go back through all of these?
Yeah, I need to start at the biosphere.
Everybody got that? We just talked about it. It's the biosphere. Which of the following is a population? So, coyotes of Columbiana County. Does it name a species? Does it name a place?
Yes.
Yep, that's our winner. Maple trees. Why is that not a population? Doesn't name a place. What about Beaver Creek? Why not? Doesn't name a species. Raccoons and possums in Calcutta Township.
No.
Why?
Because it's all the group.
It's two species. Raccoons and possums cannot interbreed. They are different species. If they did, Heaven help us all, because that would be some frightening hybrid offspring. Biotic factors. So biotic means they are living. Are predators living things?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, they are. Are food sources living things, Sydney? Yes. Why? You can't get any nutrients out of something that was never alive. You can put a rock in your mouth and you can swallow it, but guess what? It is going to come out the other end looking exactly like it went in. Your body can't do a thing with it. You can prove that to yourself. Please do not share the results of your experiment with us. So you can... No. No. You eat little bits of sand and grit all the time. I can tell you this, after we took my daughter to the beach when she was 17 months old, there were some really uncomfortable looking diapers because she got a good quantity of sand in her mouth. Don't ask me how. I'm not a bad mother, I swear. But, well, I probably heard a little bit coming out. It was like sandpaper. She ate sand. It happens. Little kids do weird stuff. But, you know, it came right back out the other end. It looked pretty much the same way it went in. It was glued together with other stuff. But is that too much information? So, okay, you can't get any nutrients out of that. Your body cannot process nutrients out of something that was never alive. So every single thing that you eat is a life that has ended. How's that for, like, appreciating your food? Like, even if you're a vegetarian, you're killing plants. If you're eating it, it was a living thing. So, yes, your food sources are definitely biotic factors. Your offspring, are they biotic factors? You betcha. If you're a living thing, rocks don't reproduce. Rocks do not have baby rocks. That is not where gravel comes from. So, your offspring are living things. Is the weather a living thing? Nope. You got it wrong. Because it said choose all that apply. Olivia is particularly bent about this right now. She's a little bit grumpy. Okay, you didn't choose, you just chose predators and offspring. That was the common one. And honestly, that's why I made this out of 3, not 4. Because I felt like that one was, that food sources kind of makes people go, I don't know. So I give you a freebie. Abiotic factors, non-living things. Your prey, no, that's living. No matter what it is that you're preying on, if you're eating it, it's alive or was alive or is soon to not be alive. What about the weather? Yes. And soil? Yes, not alive. Full of living things, but not alive itself. And potential mates. They are living things. You cannot mate with a rock. So that that's clever. Okay, so you know this, the prefix bio. Anytime you see bio, it means living or life. It's related to living things. And a means without. So like we've talked about sexual versus asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is reproduction without sex. So A means without. So the biotic factors in any ecosystem are the living things that affect the rest of the ecosystem. They affect the rest of the system. The trees affect you and you affect the trees. Doesn't seem much like it, but you're putting off all this lovely CO2 that they suck up, and they're putting out all this lovely oxygen that you suck up. There was a big thing in the 80s about talking to your plants, and people would get up really close to their house plants and talk to them every day, and it was supposed to make your plants grow better.
Do you say hi to them?
Hi. No, I don't. I can barely say hi to me every day. Sorry, somebody's got to get cut off. And a lot of people said, yeah, your plants get bigger. You're breathing carbon dioxide all over them. So I don't know if that was true or not. It's not something that's been measured, I don't think. But you're affecting plants. Plants are affecting you. The bacteria on and in your body are affecting you. Without them, you die. So biotic factors are all the living things that influence the system. The idea that I want to share with you is this, that when you have living things influencing one another, what we're really talking about is relationships. If you've got 2 living things that are influencing one another, they have a relationship. So every living thing that you encounter throughout your day, your dog, your sibling, your mom, your dad, your chickens, the soil bacteria that you crush on your way out the door, your teachers, your friends. You have a relationship with all of them. So these are some relationships that we talk about a lot. And we'll talk a lot more about these in the next chapter when we really kind of dive into them in depth. Predator-prey relationships. You've known this since middle school. Predators eat prey. Name me a predator-prey relationship. Give me an example. Birds and bugs. What? Lion and a gazelle.
Coyote and deer.
Coyote and deer.
Me and mice.
You and mice? Interesting. Okay.
I don't eat them.
Well, then you're not a predator.
Chicken.
And you're not a predator. You and a chicken. Okay. Cats and chipmunks. Coyotes and rabbits. Nobody has yet mentioned the vicious,
Human.
terrifying predator, the bunny. What's the bunny's prey? Clover, grass, dandelion greens, baby shrubs. Is that a predator-prey relationship?
No.
Yes. It is. It's okay. I'm laying that out there as a trap. You just walked into it. It's fine. It was my meanness. Yeah, it is. We don't think of it as one. But even herbivores are predators. That's still a predator-prey relationship. It's not the one we traditionally, it's not bloody and it's not all that suspenseful. The lion chasing the gazelle on the Serengeti, that's suspense. That's some good, nature documentary drama. The rabbit chasing the clover in the yard is not such good television. It's kind of boring. But it's a predator-prey relationship. And then symbiotic relationships. These three should be inset because these three are all types of symbiotic relationships. So a symbiotic relationship is any kind of long-term relationship between two species. So we're talking about many generations. Otzi! I get to talk about Otzi and bacteria again and gut bacteria. What does Otzi prove? Otzi proves that Helicobacter pylori has been living in human guts for at least 5,000 years.
Maybe longer.
Probably longer. But we now have definitive proof that 5,000 years ago, and I actually think Otzi's like 5,500 years old now, 5,500 years ago, this species of bacteria was already living in human guts.
When did you say they found him?
They found him in 91. And he's still on ice in the museum, and they pull him out every couple years and do some more research on him and stick him back in ice. They're preserving.
They freeze him.
He is kept frozen.
What if his family wasn't buried?
He's 55,000 years old. I don't think they can trace his family. So, but it's a good question. There could be groups who would come forward and claim him as an ancestor, who would say, this is disrespectful. We want,
It's my great-grandpa.
Well, you couldn't get that close. There has been that case made with human remains in excavations of Native American settlements in the Southwest, where they excavate a pueblo and they find human remains, and Navajo people will come forward and say, "Hey, look, we don't know who it is. We don't know that it's Joe's great-grandpa or great to the 16th power grandpa, but we know that is an ancestor of ours, and we need that ancestor to be buried appropriately." So that argument does actually come up with human remains. Nobody has made that argument about Otzi. As far as I know, there hasn't been any great controversy about the fact that he's a subject of scientific inquiry. So, and mostly that comes up with groups who, for one reason or another, their religious beliefs or their spiritual beliefs forbid things like the use of scientific research on a body. And for Native Americans, that's the case. They have a very strong worldview that, the bodies of their ancestors have to be buried. A lot of modern Americans, Europeans, people all over the world donate their bodies to science. Have you heard of this? When you die, you can decide to donate your body to science. They go to medical schools.
Yeah, before you die.
So you have to decide before you die. And future doctors work on cadavers. I mean, they have to become familiar with the human body internally. And so there are cadavers, and med students get a cadaver when they're in medical school, and they study on that body for up to a year. And then what's left is buried. Or actually, I think they're cremated. What's left is cremated. You know, but again, so nobody has come forward and said of Utsi, you know, hey, we shouldn't be using him for science. But he can't speak up for himself, you're right. Okay, so a symbiotic relationship. It's long-term. The big qualifiers here. It is long-term, and we mean many generations. Dogs and humans. Do you know how long dogs and humans have been hanging out together?
Too low.
Over 15,000 years. Dogs and humans have been hanging out for over 15,000 years. You know, we have good genetic evidence in terms of when dogs diverge from wild canid populations, from wolf populations, because you can sequence the DNA, and you can see how long has it been since wolves and dogs were identical, and it's been over 15,000 years. That's long term. That's two different species, humans and dogs. Who benefits from that relationship? Who benefits from the dog-people relationship?
The dog people.
Both. Yeah.
People.
What do people get out of it? Historically. Protection, livestock herding. These days, a lot of people get companionship from dogs. Hunting. What do humans get, or what do dogs get out of the deal?
Love.
Okay, food. Love is great. Show me the food. That's what my dog always says. Yeah, love, whatever. Where's the food? Shelter. Protection. Life for a dog in the wild is pretty rough. There are a lot of predators coming after you. If you're attached to a human, you get a measure of protection. We have service dogs in this day and age. I have a friend who has MS. It's a degenerative disease. So she's in her 50s, and she's probably got the muscular coordination of a woman in her late 80s. So she stumbles a lot. She can't grip things very well. She's got a lot of muscular stuff. April the Wonder Dog was her service dog for 12 years, I think, 10 years. She's now on her second service dog. April could put clothes in the dryer. April would open the refrigerator and the oven. They had rope handles on the handles of all the appliances, and April could open all the appliances for her.
Did April pass away?
April retired.
She retired.
April got retired, yes.
Did she go whenever she retired?
She still lives with them, but she is no longer on duty, and now Junius is the new Wonder Dog.
Could she still help though? Does she still
I don't know. I haven't been over there in a long time. I have a hard time imagining April just like stepping down.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it works. But anyway, that's a mutualistic relationship. Both of those organisms benefit. What about the bacteria in your guts? Who's benefiting there?
The bacteria.
The bacteria.
We would die.
And you would die without them. So they're both benefiting. What do the bacteria get out of it?
Life.
Food and shelter. You get nutrients and shelter. Okay, I'm doing this just for James. More fart stuff. Because I can. So,
As long as it's a guy.
oh, no, this is all about women. All about women.
Oh, wow.
No, it's not. All humans, males and females.
No.
You put food into your body, you could not break that food down without the bacteria in your gut. The gas is largely produced because the bacteria off-gas as they digest nutrients. The bacteria get some of the nutrients because it's like they're chewing our food for us. Like they get some nutrients when they chew it, and then the rest of the nutrients are broken down so that we can absorb them. Commensal, these are a little bit harder to identify. Parasitic are easy because one is harmed, one benefits.
Or harm.
Parasites typically don't kill you. Yeah, name a human parasite.
Flu.
Tapeworm. Influenza, yeah, it's a virus. That's shaky territory. Lice are great. That's a whole other discussion we should have.
Tick.
Ticks, fleas. Parasites would prefer not to kill you. Why?
So they can live off you still.
Yeah, you're their meal ticket. If they kill you, oh, leeches are great.
I found a
Yeah,
leech
leeches are awesome. How cool are
I found a
they?
leech in Beaver Creek. It wouldn't stay on me anymore.
It was a defective leech. That's so sad.
What do you mean?
If it wouldn't stay on, oh yeah.
It was on me and I pulled it off. But it
You have a little cut. No, no.
It was reaching down.
You can't even feel it. You look down and go, ah, crap, I got a leech.
That's what I did. I was like, right here. I was like,
I mean,
you feel it?
just a leech.
How do you get it off? Do you just have to burn it off?
No.
Do you pull it off?
Yeah, you can pull them off. You can pull them off. It's pretty easy.
You're so sad.
This is such a wonderful class. I love it. Farts and leeches. It's fantastic. Bacteria, bacteria, bacteria. Have a good weekend, folks.